shines weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another episode of Native Bidaské. I'm your host, Levi Rickert. With us today is best-selling author Angeline Boulley. She is a tribal citizen of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, and she's here today to talk, and she's holding up the book. I have it as well. Talk about her latest book, Sisters in the Wind. And welcome, Angeline. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. Chimigwich to you. And we are fellow Michiganders. And so when I read the book, I was real familiar with some of the, including Central Michigan University, obviously up in Mount Pleasant, but then you mentioned Grand Rapids a couple of times where I live. So thank you for that. It was really cool. And so I just think the book was fantastic. And I'll give my opinion right from the start. How are you feeling having your third book out?
It's been a struggle. It really has. My third book, everyone says the second book is the hardest, but for me, it's been the third book that's been the most difficult to write. I think the subject matter, for one, and the condensed time frame for writing it, it seemed like more of a struggle this time. So any news about, people liking it or that it, that means a lot to me.
Well, I will tell you, I loved it. I actually, and maybe you would not want to hear this, but I thought it was your best book yet. So, but that's just my opinion. But and they're all good. But it really makes me proud because I knew you before you became the author. So it's just really exciting for us that we we know her. So so congratulations on your success. And let's kind of dig right in. How did you arrive at the title Sisters in the Wind, and how does it echo or diverge from the elemental themes of Firekeeper's Daughter and Warrior Girl on Earth?
Warrior Girl Unearthed.
Yeah.
Really my editor and I worked on title suggestions and that, and I really wanted to convey, first of all, the element of air and wind. So following the elements of fire and earth, now we're looking at wind. And it really seemed to fit with kind of the chaos of child welfare and the disruptiveness of pulling children from homes and whether or not they're placed in a Native community or not. It's kind of like they're going through a very combustible situation, and then they're just kind of tossed to the winds, and some make their way home and some don't. So that was really where the title came from.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, that the book touches on so much of what we know in Indian country is our reality. And here's the main character in the foster care system. And I'm not sure there's any Native American who does not know somebody who's been touched by the foster care system. And so you really delved into something that was really deep for us and of high concern. What inspired you to even place the young Native teen at the center of your narrative on the failures of the foster care system in Indian Child Welfare Act, known as ICWA?
Yes. So really two things happened. First, I needed an idea for my third book, but the timing of the U.S. Supreme Court Hallen v. Brackeen, even though the Supreme Court ruled, they upheld a lower court ruling that favored tribal sovereignty. We know that the race is not to the swift, but to those who keep running. And there are just too many people with deep pockets and vested interests in dismantling tribal sovereignty. And ICWA is one law that affirms that sovereignty of our nations, and so it will continue to be under attack. There will be, more strategizing of how else to, take it down, and then that also coincided with, in my first book, the character of Jamie. He's the undercover, the young man that's actually an undercover tribal police officer, and he's on assignment with this federal investigation, and he mentions to Donis, the main character in Firekeeper's Daughter, that he, was adopted out. He didn't know anything about his tribe, and so I wanted to tell his story, and just the best way to do it was a character that would be so connected to everybody on Sugar Island and Sault Ste. Marie, but had no idea of those connections. And so bringing Jamie in as like a mentor to Lucy, it just made sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, Lucy Smith is the main character in this book. She's involved with the foster care system, as we talked, and beyond that, she's really on a journey to find out who she is as a person, and having been adopted, and it really makes for very interesting reading, and it becomes a thriller. And as I said earlier, most Native people can identify with the Native children who have gone through the foster care system. And beyond that, most of us know those Native people who struggle with their identity as Native people. So you actually grapple with two very, very, very highly recognized subject matters among Native people. And Lucy Smith in the book is just totally likable. And she's just like you're pro Lucy from the get-go. Where did she come from your imagination? I want to ask you that as an author.
Each character comes to me in different ways. Donis, it was like 3 decades of thinking about her and what she was like. Very long creative process. Perry, the protagonist in my second book, she popped into my head fully formed and told me who she was and what she was about. And for Lucy, it was more of trying to pull this information from her, and she's so cloaked. She's so afraid of getting close. It kind of felt like that in the writing of her. It was like hard to kind of figure out what she was really about. So yeah, that's how my characters are to me, is like real people that exist in my mind, and some reveal themselves much more readily than others. All of my books delve into Native identity, and certainly with Donis, it was being Native and white and not growing up on the res, and sometimes feeling not Native enough. And for Perry, she's Black and Ojibwe, and so is very much grounded in her Ojibwe teachings, fluent in the language, but the ways in which that the racism sometimes from within our communities, and complicated histories that really made that was an element of Perry's story. And for Lucy, she was this person that didn't know she was Native growing up, and then finds out about all of this connection, and then it's up to her to decide, does she want to have a relationship with this family, with the community, and kind of what factors have happened in her past that influence how she responds to learning that she is Ojibwe, and that there are all of these relatives that want to meet her.
Yeah, it is. I really like that part of the book when she did go to be with her family and meet them. Uh, can you share with more about the research process behind the novel, especially your study of the legal briefs and testimonies relating to ICWA? You've kind of already touched on it, but why was that so important to you? And I think we were all very thrilled with the decision, Holland versus Burkine versus Holland. I remember being with believe it or not, the director of the Census Bureau when that decision came across my phone, and we all just kind of like, wow, this is cool. Because what was it, 7-2 decision? We thought it was just going to get over, because I had come from NCAI maybe 2 weeks before, and it was tribal leaders were really nervous, and we felt it was like one of the biggest threats to tribal sovereignty in many years. And so, talk about that process. How did you know that was the right subject to write about?
Well, there's some really great research out there. So I read the original 1974 Senate subcommittee hearings on, that led to the passage of ICWA in 1978, and then read all of the amicus briefs for the Holland v. Burkine Supreme Court case. And so, it wasn't just, reading those amicus briefs that are filed either in support of ICWA or against ICWA, really finding out. There was a brief that was filed by Native lawyers who, could cite a lot of reasons why ICWA was so important. There were former foster parents that talked about it. But then there were also organizations and people that were opposed to it. And reading through their arguments and knowing that a lot of it was just hogwash, really. I just wanted to, it was just really fascinating reading.
Yeah. And it's very needed that you wrote about it. Now, I'm going to pivot a little bit here. In the book, you compare Native communities to non-Native communities in a very unique way. Peas versus onions. And so, that I actually highlighted that. And actually, that day I wrote it out. I took a picture and sent it to my staff. I said, this is so cool. So let me read you a little bit what you wrote. And it says, a Native social worker told me, it's the difference between peas and onions. Non-Native social workers and court personnel think of peas in a pod. They're all lined up in the pea pod. They all look the same. When you open up the pod, the peas scatter. Native families are like onions. Now I'm going to ask you, quoting you, why do you write that? Why are we like onions? I love it.
I have to give full credit to Carla Sinaway. She is a former tribal social services director for the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. She's currently the president of Saginaw Chippewa Tribal College. And I, had interviewed her, and she had told me about the peas and the onions, and that, and with Native families that, the outside of an onion, it looks all messed up and everything, and, pretty rough around the edges. And, most people will peel off those edges and just throw them away and not think they're worth anything. And then as you get down to, all of these different layers are protecting that sweetest core, that little green sweet core of the onion. And that's the Native child. And all of these layers are protecting and holding, that. And that some of our family members, they're rough around the edges, and there might be that, to an outsider, they might think there's not much value to those extended family members. And but we know that they serve an important role with the Native child.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the explanation. I just think it's really nice, and I'm going to incorporate that into some of my conversations because I just think it's a great comparison. A great comparison.
Great. Please give full credit to Carla Sinaway.
I will. I will. I will. And how did you strike balance between delivering a propulsive young adult thriller and weaving in themes of Indigenous identity, generational trauma, and critique of the systemic injustice?
I think all of my books, all the stories I want to tell, they're like about an issue. They're always involving identity. But I like writing smart thrillers and mysteries, and to keep the reader engaged and kind of propelled into this story. And I think stories are a great way. I could give a lecture on ICWA. Will people really remember about it? But a story about a character that's living it, that is memorable, and that reaches people very different from us. James Joyce wrote that in the particular we find the universal, and so this story about Lucy is very particular, but it really does speak to that need for family and connection, and being afraid of being vulnerable and trusting people when you've been hurt repeatedly over and over. And so stories are a great way to connect with our humanity and to really feel for Lucy and care for her, and know that all of the things that she has gone through could have been prevented if that initial social worker had followed ICWA.
Yes. As I'm sitting here, I'm wondering, do you ever have young Native people walk up to you and say, "You've written about me," or I can relate"?
Yes, I have. And, I do, I always want to ask them, did I do justice? If you feel that this story is about you, did I do justice to what you would want, conveyed? Someone going through similar situation. I really, that was kind of the thing when Firekeeper's Daughter came out. And for the first 6 months, all of my events were either virtual or in person. We would be masked and, social distanced. And I swear there were a number of times where a Native woman would approach me and she would want to tell me how much the Firekeeper's Daughter meant to her, and she'd have a hard time with the words, and I'd see the tears well up in her eyes, and then I would be responding almost like this conversation with our eyes, and I was asking her, did I do us justice? Did I tell our stories? And yeah, yep.
That's definitely having impact. And I think as authors, all authors want to have impact. They just don't want to write something and have to wonder. So that's really, and I just, as a Native person, I know that we can relate to each other because traditionally we're storytellers, and you are a fantastic storyteller. So again, congratulations for accomplishing that. And in a sense, you let Native people feel at home with you. So that's you've been able to capture. That's wonderful. Now, what was behind your decision to structure Lucy's story with alternating timelines between past and present, and how did that shape emotional impact in the suspense?
Well, I try to challenge myself with each book. So, the challenge with my debut novel, Firekeeper's Daughter, was really, to get the book deal and get it published. The second book, my goal was to write a character that was completely different from Donis, and that I did that with Perry. And my third book, I really wanted to do storytelling in a nonlinear fashion. So to have we meet Lucy in the present, and then as we get to know her, we might be frustrated with some of her decisions, but then the flashing back of kind of how she came to be the Lucy that we now know. It added to the thriller mystery of it, because you could reveal something in her present, and have the reader be like, "Oh, I wonder about this," and then tease a little bit the in the flashback. So
I thought it was fascinating how you did it. I was like, okay, I gotta get back. Hope she gets back to the other part. Then when you alternate and you say, oh, okay, and the same thing would happen in each section of the past and present. So it was very well done. So yeah, that was great. We heard through the grapevine that you're participating in the upcoming Anishinaabe exhibition at the Detroit Institute of Arts in towards the end of September. What does it mean to you to be part of this big event?
it's such an honor. It's an honor to have an author and books, stories as part of that focus. And then that I get to be, one of the lucky people that, gets to be a part of it. It's a big honor.
Well, yes, and I hope to see you there. My daughter, actually, Monica Rickert Bolter, will have a submission. She's a fine artist and she runs she and Deb Papon down in Chicago run Native Futures. I'll put a little plug in for my daughter, but she'll be there, we'll be there, and so I'll get my book autographed. How's that when I see you?
Sounds great.
All right, great. Your work is often grounded in Anishinaabe values and love for your community. How does the connection inform Lucy's story in Sisters in the Wind?
Lucy is kind of the opposite of me. So, I always knew I was Ojibwe and always had close contact with grandparents and cousins. And so to just think about Lucy, of all of that, learning about it later. And there's the sadness of what she missed out on. And her, kind of finding family or building, a family that, what do we call that? Found family. So that's really, with Lucy. And being Native doesn't have to look any certain way. I think that's what I love about my stories, is highlighting all of these different Native young women, and their backgrounds are all different, and their views about their identity, the cultural teachings that they get, how they what they do with those teachings, their level of fluency with the language. Like, I'm showing a variation because I want Native readers to know that being Native is something that you claim. And once you do, like, it's like, well, I didn't know a Native person could be like that. Well, you claim your Native identity, and what you do, that's what a Native person does. So kind of that defining it for yourself, and that it doesn't have to look like anybody else's identity.
I really like that, because we come in all varieties, all sizes, and as the old saying goes, when you met one tribe, you met one tribe. We're not all collectively. I guess we share a lot of the same values, but I really do respect what you just said, that we all have our own identities. And I've been accused of, because I wear a blue blazer often, I look too white. So, okay, what does that mean? And so, but it's, I'm still who I am as Levi Rickert, publisher of Native News Online. So I really do appreciate you bringing that to light. It's a very strong message. Now, last summer, I had the privilege of meeting your father. However, I didn't know he was your father, but I figured it out. I was part of a talking circle up at Baraga, and just through conversation, I figured it out. And of course, I'm friends with Aaron Payman. And so I walked to Aaron and said, that Angeline's father? She said, yes. So he's actually a tremendous gentleman. Tell me this, how much did he influence your life, who you are as Native, being Native?
Oh, he's, my primary, teacher of being Anishinaabe. And so, yeah, he's quite the character. And I did a book event at the local bookstore in the town that I live in, and my parents came with me. And this is the difference between my mom and dad. My mom sits in the back. She does not want to be introduced or acknowledged. My dad, he wants a seat next to me in the audience in case people have questions for him. And
I
then
love it.
afterwards, with the signing line, so people could get their books signed, I'd be like, well, and they'd be like, well, we want your dad's signature too. So it was like this. Oh my
That's
God.
great.
Yeah. So
That's great.
he's loving it.
I told Aaron, I said, I'd love to just sit down with him with a video camera and just let him talk. I'd love to interview him someday. So maybe that can happen because he's a fascinating individual. So yeah, it's great that he's still with you. So that's great. That's great.
Yes.
All right. One last question. What do you hope Indigenous readers will gain from Lucy's journey? And what might non-Indigenous readers take away about identity, community, and systemic harm?
I think what I want non-native readers to know is that, ICWA is this gold standard and that it works, when it's followed. And when it's not followed, that's when we get, very heartbreaking and complicated situations. And so I want non-native readers to become allies of, this law makes sense. Let's follow it as intended. For my native readers, kind of the same thing, but again, I want people to feel seen. I want them to feel that I did justice to telling stories of people that they might be familiar with, who have gone through similar situations. And I want them to be, proud to be Native. And if they want to kind of strengthen the ties with their own community, I hope that, the book gives them some ideas or support in, because that cord isn't ever truly severed. We have blood memory. And so we have, yeah. So I just, for people who want to find their way back home and have a relationship with their tribal community, that's what I want for them.
Yeah, that is just so important. And the older I get, Angela, I really think that it's really a lifelong journey that we're on in terms of discovering who we are as Native people. And even though we've been Native, and I always jokingly tell people I'm so old, I still say I'm Indian. So and people, you can't say that anymore. Well, I do. But, we're Native American, but more appropriately, I'm Potawatomi. So I respect that. And that's my identity. But your work is fantastic. We've been talking with Angeline Boulley, the best-selling author. Her new book, Sisters in the Wind, came out just this past Tuesday. And you need to get online and order it through however you get your books, or go to the Barnes and Noble. And you're going to be on book tour, right? So how exciting.
Very exciting. Even into Canada, I'll be in Vancouver for part of the tour, and Winnipeg.
Well, congratulations again. And to our viewers, we at Native News Online, we like to cover these in our slogan for Native Bidaské is those making news and leading change in Indian country. And Angeline Boulley is doing actually both. She is making news and leading change, and she's won all kinds of awards. So we are really proud of her. And as a fellow Michigander, I'm so proud of what she's been able to accomplish. And as I like to tell you every week, young ones take care of those elders, and elders give you young ones a good hug, and we are all in this together. Chimigwich, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us. If you value our warrior journalism for Indian country, please consider supporting our work by scanning the QR code or visiting the link below. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and sign up for our